Hello. Thanks for being here. We're getting started. Let's check our levels. Can you hear me on the
Sure can.
on the thing? All right. Very, very good. Yes, thanks for being here. Today we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to move pretty quickly, and I'm going to do that because some of the stuff we've talked about before, I'm going to kind of respect your intelligence and skip over some of the very basic concepts and assume that you're with me here in 2020, that you're running a business, that you'll understand the day-to-day pressures of competition and the expectations of the marketplace. And we're gonna move through a few different conversations very quickly. First, we're going to talk about the opportunity that exists for small businesses today that has not existed before. Something new is happening. There's a new technology that's coming. Ontraport's super excited to be a part of it, and we're going to talk about what that is today, and how it can impact the way you engage your customers and the difference that can make for your business. I'm going to give you just a couple of quick examples of companies that have done this and show you how it's changed everything for them. Then we're going to dive into kind of the conceptual framework of what dynamic content is and how it sort of works together. Because just like any tool, once you understand how to use it, then you have a new possibility for yourself, right? Before you understand how to use the tool, it's not very useful to you. Once you do understand it, you can start to begin to think about new ways of putting this to work in your business, right? Possibility emerges, and you have a new sort of creativity that's possible. And you don't need to be an expert to understand enough so that you can begin to think about, man, look what I could do, in this part of my business, or look how I could engage my customers over here, and how might that make a difference for my ability to compete or stand out in a crowded marketplace. So we're going to talk about kind of the framework of what dynamic content is, what a CMS, dynamic CMS, stands for content management system. But really, it's a bigger concept than that, what we're going to be talking about today. And then thirdly, today, we're going to dive into Ontraport's dynamic CMS, just at a very high level, and just kind of show you a little bit about how it works. And I'm going to show you an example of what's possible, a very simple example. We're going to put a blog together and show you how you might build a blog using these tools. What's really exciting about these tools is that a blog is just one possibility. Just like if you had a hammer and nails and a skill saw, you could build a wall, but you could also build a roof or a dog house. You can build kind of anything with a capable set of tools, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. Ontraport, as you've engaged with it over the last decade and change, has been a marketing powerhouse. It's been a lot about how we get customers, how we communicate with customers, how we take care of customers, via messaging once we get them on board, how we take payments, stuff like that. It's a marketing platform, marketing and sales platform. What you're going to see today is that the future of this platform is going to be completely different. And I think that once you get your mind around what's possible here, you're going to see Ontraport and its capabilities taking a new position in your business. You're going to see what's possible with this platform and begin to think about it in a whole new way. So let's get started. I know that we're initially going to do this using Zoom, so there might be a button on that live stream page that says join the Zoom link. We backed out of that because we found out that Zoom doesn't stream at high enough quality, so we switched our tool setup, so that Zoom link isn't going to be working. You can just watch it here on Facebook or on the live stream page, the embedded YouTube stream there, and that'll be the best way to go. I believe, and I'm not sure, but I believe that somewhere here I should be able to see comments. I don't know exactly how that works. Well, maybe private chat. I don't know exactly how that works. Maybe somebody will figure that out and we can do some Q&A at the end. So let's get started. Let's switch to these slides. We've got a bunch of slides. I'm going to go kind of back and forth. And like I said, I'm going to move quickly today. This is still going to probably take about an hour, but I'm going to move through these concepts very quickly. So if you are new to them, hopefully you'll get enough of an idea that you can kind of come with us. And if this is something that you're familiar with, maybe we'll bring you to the next level and open up some new possibilities. So what is dynamic CMS? Why does it matter? How does it work? Is the question at hand today. So here's the challenge that we're facing and trying to solve. Customers expect more. The expected customer experience, the bar for what people are expecting, is constantly being raised by big companies with huge budgets, right? We know this is true. We've seen it in industry after industry after industry. Here's just a quick example of a company that has done very well for a long time, selling weight loss training, right? It's kind of an old model of experience. You know kind of what that's going to be, right? It's a long sales letter, and then after that, it's going to be some videos and whatever. Now we have, I couldn't get a very good screenshot here, but we have companies like Noom. Maybe you've heard of them. They're having success on a whole nother level, right? This is a $400 million company now. I think maybe even bigger at this point. And what are they doing? They're helping people lose weight, but they're doing it with a web application. They're doing it in a way that is and feels hyper personalized, right? It's an experience that's designed specifically for each user, and it's done through a piece of software, right? It's done through a piece of software, and the experience is dynamic and personalized and customizable and hyper targeted. It feels like it's built just for me, right? I didn't wear my freaking ring today, but I've got an Aura ring that is the same way, right? Maybe you guys know what that's like. You have these guys have gamified, sleep and physical fitness. Another example, this is just a clip from a financial services website. You would recognize this from any of a million, kind of old school financial services websites. But now we have companies like Betterment, again, a multi-billion-dollar company at this point in valuation, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, doing it with an app. Why? It's a better experience. It's just simply a better experience. And these companies have put a ton of money. Obviously, they have big teams of engineers building these applications, and what that's allowed them to do is to scale an experience that feels personalized, that feels like it's made for me, that doesn't feel salesy, like I'm getting hammered on by some financial services guy, and it's allowed them to scale at a level that no financial services company, local financial services company could ever do. So they're doing it through software. They're doing it through web applications that gather a bunch of data about each user and then use that data to deliver hyper-personalized, hyper-targeted experiences. So the challenge is competing with this, right? Over the course of the last decade, we've seen industry after industry after industry disrupted by software, right? And that software has always been built by teams of very expensive engineers. Very hard to hire, very hard to manage, very hard to maintain and grow a software company. You can take it from me. It's super expensive and painful. And that's why most small businesses don't do it. You honestly can't compete unless you're truly an engineering firm. Engineers don't want to work for mom and pop shops. Their career requires them to work for a software shop. That's where they go to learn from and create a career. So it's impossible for a small team, for a small company to compete with something like a Betterment. You can try doing stuff on Fiverr. It doesn't work out, right? So what is the opportunity today? And again, this is a very fast brushstroke through a complex kind of new industry that's growing, but the industry is called no-code web application development. It's a kind of software that's being built now that allows non-coders to build and deliver these hyper-targeted, personalized web applications at a fraction of the cost, because they're not done by engineers. They're done by people like you and me with drag and drop interfaces. And what that enables is companies like ours, right? Companies that are smaller teams without $100 million a year budget and 30 engineers to compete with the big boys, right? That's super exciting. And when you start to think about what it takes to stand out in a crowded marketplace, you can see obviously that this is where things are going, that competing today and in the future is going to require delivering the kind of experience that consumers expect. And as we have begun to expect an Uber quality of experience, a Betterment quality of experience, right? A DoorDash quality of experience, an OpenTable quality of experience. That expectation gets transferred, right? And so now that old experience at your yoga shop or with your training company or with your, legal firm, it doesn't cut the mustard anymore, right? So we need to be thinking about what can we do to lead the way in terms of the kind of experiences that we're delivering. Why? Because look, marketing is great. I'm all for great marketers, but even the best marketers in the world, and I know a lot of them, right? I'm in, they're my friends. I've been in this industry for a long, long time, 20 years. I know all the best marketers in online marketing, one way or another. I'm in, chat groups with them, and the very best of the best will still tell you that what it really comes down to is having a great offer and delivering a great experience, because that trumps everything, right? The marketing is like ornamentation around the core experience that you deliver as a company. And if you can't get that right, it's all a struggle, right? And if you can get it right, then tailwinds is what you have in every area of your marketing, right? When you spend dollars to get one new customer, they tell 3 others. Without that kind of tailwind today, you're fighting an uphill battle that will grind you down forever. So you really need to be focused on delivering the kind of experiences that people love and that people talk about. So let's think about that today, right? This isn't about some fancy trick that's going to get you another, 3% open rate, or how to, do some other marketing trick. This is about how we design and deliver the kind of experiences that consumers love and talk about. So that is the opportunity that's before us today. And that is what we're talking about here. So Ontraport's new dynamic CMS allows you to build a web application in your Ontraport account without a single line of code. How is that possible? Well, let's start at the top. And again, I got a lot of slides here, but we're going to move through this quickly. Let's think about, and this is sounds like a silly question, but here's the thing. We all use web apps, right? We know what a web app is, right? What are they? They're things like Facebook and Instagram and Airbnb and WhatsApp and OpenTable and Betterment and Noom, right? We know what those things are. We know it when we see it. But being able to kind of think about how that thing is put together is a skill that you're going to want to have, because once you can kind of understand not the code of it all, but the structure, the sort of data structure and kind of how it works from a fundamental level, like just look under the covers a little bit to understand what that thing is a skill that's going to allow you to begin to imagine and to sort of create ideas that you can put together in your own business. And once you can kind of imagine it and think it through, then it's just one little step using these new technologies to actually building it and making it real, right? So let's start with that. Let's start with understanding what this stuff is and kind of how it works. And so I've got a bunch of slides here that's gonna walk us through the peeling back of Airbnb, actually. So when we think about these applications, we understand that those are applications. But if you look one step deeper, what you can see is that actually all the applications that we use on a day-to-day basis on the web or on our phones or whatever, they're really just a set of features. There are a bunch of features that are kind of put together and scrambled in different ways, right? And they're features like this. There's stuff like login and view and updating profiles and adding and editing records and playing audio and video and messaging, right? Friends and followers and check-ins and tickets and mapping and likes, right? These are all things that we understand and that we use every day, and basically you can kind of see that all of the apps that we use are sort of various scrambled up combinations of these sorts of things, right? So let's dive in a little bit deeper and look at a specific example. So Airbnb, I think we're all probably familiar with and many of us a bit tired of Airbnb, but we know what we're talking about here. This is an artist's rendition of the Airbnb homepage. This is like the map there on the right with a little kind of like homes that are for rent, and on the left there It's of the list of homes, right? And you know how that works. It shows you all the different homes here. And when you click on one of those homes, you get this other page, right? It's a page that is all about one home. You see a listing for the homes. That's what this is here. It's a kind of representing the images at the top, and then on the right here you see, excuse me, a little calendar, right? It tells you when it's available, and it tells you the price, and it tells you the bedrooms and how many bathrooms it has, and a description of the thing. And it's all this data about a single home, right? We can understand that. There's other pages on this site as well. Things like my reservations and my payments, right? This is a bunch of different pages that make up the Airbnb website. So, oh, and here's us. And if you click on it, one of your historic reservations, there's another page, right? A single reservation that you have, and maybe some messages about it. Maybe you've got some payment history about that thing, right? You can kind of see how this is, Airbnb. You know that Airbnb, they don't have a team of web guys over there that are building each page by hand, right? What you know is that this is an application worth a database, and that the database fills out these pages, and these are kind of like templates, right? So that's what we're going to talk about first, is that one of the core concepts of web applications is that these pages are not built out by hand. They're built using templates, right? And we actually understand that concept if we've ever run a blog, right? WordPress works just like that, and we'll talk about that in a second. So templates and data-driven web pages are a key piece of the puzzle. So here's an actual Airbnb page. This is a listing page about a Grand Escalante cave house, right? And so here's what we were talking about before. This is the images and the calendar, right? And now here's another page on Airbnb. This is kind of what we might call a search results page or something like that. And what is it? Well, it's a little bit of information about not one record in the database, but about 15 records, right? It's a list of a bunch of them. So it's kind of like an overview. Here's the main photo and the name of it and the price of it, right? Another way of displaying that same kind of data. What they have in the core of this thing is a database with a ton of listing information in it. And here's what it looks like, right? This is an Excel version. I don't know what their database looks like, but it's going to look something like this, right? It's going to look like a list of, title, city, state, country, the headline, the description, the number of guests, blah, blah, blah. All the information about a particular listing will be in their database. And that database gets pushed into a template, right? And each row of that database automatically creates what we're going to call a dynamic page, right? And so this is maybe something like what the template looks like. And then when you fill that sucker out, it looks like this. So you can kind of see how this works, right? The title goes to the top here, and the location goes over here, and the headline goes down here, and the description goes down there, right? You guys are following me, right? This is database information, cells in a database, blopped onto a templated page, and then automatically a million pages are created, right? All created automatically, right? Using a dynamic content management system. That's what this thing is doing. So another template using that same data. Here's that listings, search results page, right? This is a single page, but with data from a bunch of different records on it. So we're going to call this a dynamic, I shouldn't say list. We're going to call this a dynamic block. So what this is going to be is like a repeating bunch of information, right? And so this is that listing page that we're talking about. Now, like I said, we've kind of experienced this before. If you've ever used WordPress, WordPress is a content management system. A very simple one, it turns out. It's complicated in a lot of ways, but there's a ton of advantages to using a content management system like what Ontraport's built for you, and you're going to see all about that in just a minute. So what do we know about WordPress? It's the same thing, right? You have a blog post template, and then what do we have? The blog post template is filled out with a bunch of data, right? Main image, post title, post description, publish date, right? And where does that stuff come from? Oh, here's the listing of all of your blogs. That's a dynamic block of a repeating block of individual records kind of laid out in a certain way. Again, using a template. There's that same data used again in a different layout, right? And where does that data live? Well, it lives here, right? This is the individual blog post record. So, and when you create one, you add in a new post, you type in your content, and you click publish, and then all of a sudden, boom, the page is automatically created, right? Here again in WordPress is a list of all those posts. This kind of reminds you of what we looked at just a second ago, right? The list of individual Airbnb listings. It's just a database with records. One record is one post. One record is one Airbnb rental, right? And what you'll see here is that this also may remind you of your Ontraport account. It looks a bit like a database. That's because it is a database. It's a really powerful database. And what we're releasing today, not today, in a couple of days, is the ability to use that data in this kind of format, right? Using dynamic pages, dynamic templates, dynamic blocks. And I'm going to show you more about how that works. So let's look at some other examples just so we can see that this is all the same stuff. Here's Expedia, where you go when you want to find touristy things to do. What is this? This is a page about Croatia, and it's a dynamic block that repeats records from a database. Here's some things that you could do. Take a day trip to Montenegro. Here, when you click on that Montenegro trip, is a single dynamic page pulling all the data about that particular record in the database, the Montenegro day trip. So begin to be thinking about the kind of data that you have or could have in your business, and how you might use that data to create an experience that your customers will be into. I guarantee you, your competitors are thinking about that. Here is OpenTable, a dynamic block. Again, a listing of restaurants. Each one of these restaurants is a record in a database, right? With the name of it and the kind of food it is and the number of dollar signs and the number of stars and you know, boom, 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 listed across the page in a dynamic block. Here, when you click on one of those records, is the dynamic page of a particular record on OpenTable. Again, very familiar now that we've just seen it happen 3 different times. Here's Reddit. It's the same thing, guys. This is posts now instead of trips, or instead of listings, or instead of blog posts, or instead of restaurants. Now it's simply conversations, right? Forum threads, whatever you want to call it. And this is a page that lists the individual threads down the page with a little bit of information. Hallucinogenic magic mushrooms, with a picture of them and the title and some information, right? And then down the page it goes. And then when you click on that, what do we have? We have, it's a dynamic page with all the information about that post. And then we have a little bit of a combo situation here, right? We've scrambled it up a little bit. Down here we have comments, right, about that particular page. So now we have a relationship. Comments, these comments are all related to this particular magic mushrooms post. You wouldn't want these comments to show up on a different post because they're not related to that post. So they're in the database related to this dynamic page. That's how comments always work. They work like that in WordPress too. So you can see we're just getting a slightly bit more sophisticated here and creating some pretty cool functionality. Okay, back to Airbnb. We can see that this isn't just listings. There's not one database in Airbnb. In fact, here's a listing, but also here's a page about Jennifer, who runs this particular listing, right? So there's a database about hosts, they're called in Airbnb, right? And those hosts may have multiple listings. They may have a bunch of reviews, right? Here's their reviews. There's another database full of reviews. Those reviews are related to a couple of things, right? They're going to be related to the property, and they're also going to be related to the host. And so those relationships exist in the database. Beginning to get your mind around kind of how this works, again, will open up a ton of possibilities for you. So these relationships, these reviews are what we call children. They're in the database. They're children of the host record, and they're children of the listing record as well. So that's important. And here's more of that, right? And here's kind of what it may look like if you're looking at the database, hosts and guests and reviews and all sorts of stuff, right? There's also messages. Messages are going to be another kind of database in the Airbnb kind of app, right? A message is simply just a note back and forth broken into threads, right? So there probably is a database of threads with messages that are related to those threads. Airbnb, of course, is a big app. There's all sorts of, this is just a quick brainstorm of all the different databases in the Airbnb app: listings, guests, hosts, individual stays, reviews of listing, reviews of guests. Probably they go back and forth. The messages, the payments, the payouts, the images, the categories, all sorts of stuff are in there. It's a big app that's been being built for a long time. But at the end of the day, it's really just all the same stuff, isn't it? It's a database. It's some templates, some functionality where you can click around, right? So let's think about the next concept, which is where are we getting all this data? Well, if you think about Airbnb, where did they get it? They got it from going out originally and still to this day, going out towards people who want to rent their homes and saying, hey, sign up to be a host. There's a button on their website that says sign up now, right? And what happens when you do that? Well, they give you a form. A lot of data in all these apps that we just talked about is added by users via forms, right? So this is what it looks like when you click, I want to be a host. Well, what kind of place is it? It's a house, right? And tell me your name. How many bedrooms does it have? It's going to be a form. Fill it out, fill it out, fill it out. That's how data gets into a database. Same thing with Expedia. List your property, list your event, list your thing to do, right? Lodging and private residence. A lot of things that you may not even realize are forms actually are forms, like messages, for example. If you post on Reddit, that's a form. If you post on, here's another Reddit form. If you want to post on Facebook, your little comment on Facebook, that's just another form with a little submit when you hit return, and it goes into the database as a comment. It's comment that's related to you as the author. It's a comment that's related to the post as the child of the post, and on it goes. So even things like reservations are forms, right? You want to make a reservation on OpenTable here. There it is, right in the upper right. Tell me how many you are, what time you want to be there, what date. Find a table, click, and it's a form. Okay, a lot of data gets added by forms. Other ways that the data gets added: behavior tracking is also data, right? You know that if you go to Amazon, for example, that you're going to see a bunch of stuff advertised to you that's different than what I see when I go to Amazon, right? Why? Because it says right here, small business products related to items you viewed, other, soccer cleats. I play soccer twice a week. So they know that I might like some new cleats. Wireless accessories, because I can't get my stuff right and I'm always buying freaking wireless accessories, right? A little something for myself. They know I like to read. So they know all about me. How do they know? Because I've clicked stuff like that before and they record it. Right? They track my behavior around their website. They track what I purchased in the past, and they have that in a database. And then they put this page together dynamically using that data, right? So this is just a list of items that they've tagged as stuff small businesses might be interested in, or stuff that people that are into soccer might be interested in, right? So that's just as simple as that. Now, if you look at this, I go to Google and I click and I type in food, and what do I get? I get a list of restaurants in my area. You're gonna get something different unless you live in Santa Barbara on upper state area. So they know, Google does, where I live, right? Or where I'm searching from anyway. And again, that's browser data. I didn't fill out a form telling them that. They're just tracking me around, and they know about me, right? And so they keep that in a database and they build this dynamic page using that data. Same here. Oh, look at this. This is more like scroll down on the food page. All this is about, Santa Barbara Bowl, Santa Barbara everything. They know who I am and they know where I am. They're designing these pages for me. Again, DoorDash. I log in, boom, they offers for me, places that I have eaten before, right? My favorites right at the top. Offers for me, places I haven't eaten, but that I might like based on the places I've purchased from in the past, right? They've got these relationships in the database, and they just generate this dynamic page that is made just for me. Then they have national favorites, which, you know, I don't eat at McDonald's. They know they don't care. Those are just popular places, and they're putting them up there, right? So important to understand all the different ways that data can get added to your database. There's more, and we'll talk about them in a minute. Last thing to think about is identity and security. We're going to blast through this very quickly, but one thing to think about is that exposing personal data is not cool, also sometimes illegal. So that's why we have login, right? So, you know, for example, if you were to go to Airbnb and see my personal travel history or my upcoming, you know, reservations or my credit card information or my messages, that would be really weird. That's my personal information. So you don't just expose that on the web. You have a login, right? So the customer logs in, and then you only expose that stuff when you log in, right? So there's data that you can kind of in a couple of different buckets, stuff that you can use on public websites, and then stuff that you show for logged in users. We're going to skip that right now. So putting it all together, if you think about this from the top level, again, back to the list of features, what is a web app? It's this stuff, right? We just saw some of the biggest web apps in the world, and we noticed that they're all using the same like 5 features, right? Likes, some votes, some favorites, some database relationships, a bunch of forms, a bunch of stuff that is very typical. So again, looked at from a high level, show this slide. This is kind of how an app works. At the center of the thing, you have a database. All the data lives in the database, and you're collecting data in all sorts of different ways. And so here it is. Data comes into the database in a bunch of different ways. We'll show you what they are. Here they are. They're tracking, right? They're tracking me around. They're tracking where you came from. They're tracking your IP address. They're tracking all of the pages you click. Data can come from an API. If you've got other sources of data, you can just dump it into the database directly. Manual addition, right? Sometimes in your business, you may just like actually have your employees typing in data. Imports of data, if you're moving from another system. Forms, a huge way that data gets added. And then logs are another thing. So logs like purchase history, right? And that's a legitimate source of data, right? Amazon uses it to advertise cleats to me. So data in is a big piece of what a web app is. The next thing is this database here. And what does a database got to do? Well, it's got to have fields, and it's got to have the ability to create custom tables. In Ontraport, we call them custom objects. And it's got to be able to create relationships between sets of data, right? We talked about before with reviews being a child of stays, for example, or of listings. It's got to provide scalability and availability. It can't go down all the time. It's got to have security and some certification, access, and permission. You got to make sure that certain people see some data and other people can't see other data, and that's kind of the job of the database, to make sure that only the right people see the stuff they should see. Next, we have this concept of transformation, and this is something we won't get too deep into today, but it's important for these web apps. You need to be able to kind of run rules and be checking things, and so if then, if this happens, then this is true, or if this is true about a record, then show it this way, right? Calculate, add stuff up, or multiply things together, or roll fields up. You need to be able to search and sort and do, when this happens, then do this. Copy and paste, a bunch of sort of tools that you need to have in a database. And then the last thing, of course, that's super important is to be able to take that data and show it to the user, right? It's nothing if it all just lives in the database. It needs to sit out there on the web or in messaging, right? So it needs to be in your application, just like Airbnb. It needs to show up there. Or you need to be able to take that data and send messages. Hey, you've got a new comment on your post, or somebody just paid you for your Airbnb rental, right? Send a message out about that information. Obviously, API is another way that data needs to be able to get. You need to be able to get at that data for a lot of different reasons. And then finally, it needs to be displayed, on the web. So what's interesting here, if you think about all this, is that Ontraport for years has already done all this stuff over here: tracking, API, the ability to add data manually, the ability to import data, forms, logs, Ontraport has for years excelled at all these things. Ontraport also does all this database stuff, right? Fields, custom objects, relationships, scalability, security, access, permission, all built in, has been for years, right? It also does most of this, right? It does a pretty good job at all this transformation stuff. That's what we have automations for. When this is true, then do this, right? If this is true, send them down that fork. If not, send them down over here. Ontraport's pretty good at all that stuff. And we're good at a lot of this stuff, right? You can take that data in the app and you can sift it and sort it and look at groups and look at reporting. You can definitely use all that data in your messaging. You can, we've got robust APIs. You can get at that data. But this last piece right here has been the Achilles heel, and what separates Ontraport from being able to create a truly dynamic, interactive, personalized web application using these tools. Because what you couldn't do is take all that data and display it in dynamic ways on the web. And so that is what we are releasing, I believe, this week. For everybody. As you know, maybe if you've been around here, we have had this platform in beta for some of our users for a while, 6 or 8, probably like 8 or 9 months. And we've had it in beta for a bunch of different reasons. We wanted to make sure it's scalable and it's working. There are some features that we wanted to get added before we released it publicly. We needed to figure out a way and figure out how it was going to get used and kind of understand it from a systems point of view on our end to make sure that when y'all come, we can manage it. We had to figure out how to price it. Sort of a lot of work we had to do during this beta period, but the end is nigh and it is happening. So what this all means is that in a minute here, you're going to be able to build a web app like Airbnb in Ontraport, and you're going to be able to do it, or a forum, or a blog, or a learning management system, or a million other kind of applications, and you'll be able to do it without writing a single line of code. And that is a big deal, you guys. Imagine if instead of just a tiny number of people could build apps, or a tiny number of companies that have these big budgets could build apps, what if it was 10 times that number, right? What if instead of being a high-end engineer, what if you could build an app with a drag and drop interface, right? Clicking your way through it. Imagine if instead of delivering websites, you could deliver fully interactive, personalized web apps to your customers. How could you create an experience? What kind of experience would you create? What could you deliver to your customers that would have you stand out, that would deliver an experience that is, remarkable in the sense that Seth Godin meant it, that you can't help but tell your friends about it, right? The kind of slick experience that consumers expect more and more today. It's an important question. So let us move in. Have we figured out at all how to look at comments?
It should show up, but there is one from Craig Carroll.
Okay.
He's asking, is Ontraport offering something new and different through dynamic content, or simply offering what WordPress and other CMS systems have already had?
Oh, it's a great question. I haven't figured out yet how to see those comments. So you just let me know. Yeah, man, that's a great question. Do you know WordPress? Can you imagine building Airbnb in WordPress? The answer to that question is no, you cannot, because it's not possible. We'll get into it, but yes, what's really exciting about a platform like Ontraport, adding dynamic CMS functionality to an existing platform that has all those other tools, right? If you go back to like all that stuff that a web app is, getting data in, getting data, all that kind of database stuff, all that sort of transform stuff, all that sort of data display stuff, in, store, transform, out. Your typical CMS like WordPress misses the boat on a good 80% of that stuff, and so you're not able. Yes, it's a database driven template, but what you're going to see is far more powerful than your typical kind of like website builder that you would expect, a content management system to be. Which is why on our website we call this no-code web application functionality. So I think you'll see more as we get into this. So let's talk about what this is in Ontraport. What it is a bunch of new features that are coming to an account near you, should you so desire it. You're going to have the ability to create dynamic templates and then to hook up those templates to any of the databases, any of what we call custom objects in Ontraport, and automatically fill those templates and create pages using that data. You're going to be able to show lists of data like we saw with the listings of various, the house listings on Airbnb, or the restaurant listings kind of listed down the page on Open Table or whatever it might be. You're going to create that using what we call dynamic blocks, and we'll show you what that looks like together. You'll be able to link everything together dynamically, so you won't have to ever go in and make sure that when you add a new record that everything links to it, and then blah blah blah. All that happens completely dynamically. And then you'll be able to automatically host thousands of pages at once. What's really exciting is that because of the power of Ontraport Pages, which all this is built in, you're also able to use the information about your visitors, the people that are visiting these pages, and customize the page individually for each visitor. Again, something that you're going to have a hard time replicating in a typical CMS system like WordPress. So what does it look like? Start with dynamic templates. There's going to be a new menu item underneath pages. It's going to say dynamic templates. It's going to be an editor that looks very much like the Pages editor, but I'll show you in a minute how we connect individual elements back to database fields. I'll show you what that looks like. So the next thing you're going to be able to do is create dynamic blocks. So you're going to take an individual block and say, I don't want to just show this once. I want to show a list of this down the page so that I can show a list of, in the example I'm going to show you today, it's going to be blog posts. So we're going to make a very simple, blog post is the simplest thing we can do. And so I'm going to show you, usually the bottom of your blog post or somewhere, maybe on the home page, is like, hey, look at all my blog posts. And today I'll show you the kind of like read more. Here's 3 other blog posts that may interest you. And that'll be a dynamic block. Boom, boom, boom. 3 other records that may be related to the page that they're looking at, for example, in the same category, something like that. We do that with dynamic blocks. There's a way of taking your templates and automatically publishing pages for all or some of the records in your database. So automatically publishing 1,000 pages at once. For example, you wouldn't want to have to go through Airbnb's database and publish one by one each one of those listings, right? No, you want to say, I've got the data for as long as the data is complete, automatically publish the page, right? So our page types functionality and some of the automation around that allows you to sort that part out. So what data can I use? Well, you can use just about any data that's stored in Ontraport, which is super exciting. So that means contact information, purchase history, open orders, much more that comes from the contact record, but also any of our pre-made custom objects like deals, companies, virtual events. Soon we will have more, like for blogs and for courses and lessons and forums and messages, stuff like that. And then, of course, any custom objects you can create. In Ontraport, as you may know, you can go into the administration section and say, I want to create a new custom object. That's like a new database or a new table. And you can name it, blog posts was what we did here. And then you can start adding fields. And I'll show you exactly what that ends up looking like. I'll do that right now. So let's make a blog. How would you do it? Well, you'd create a new custom object. We'd call it blog posts. And then we would create a dynamic page template for blogs. What we're really building is effectively what WordPress is. What's really exciting about this is that WordPress is WordPress. You get WordPress and you have WordPress. With Ontraport, WordPress is just one version of a thing you can build, but what you really have is a toolkit that can build anything. So we're going to create a dynamic page template called blog post template, or whatever you want to call it. Then you're going to set up your page type and hosting. So kind of set up how the URL is going to be, what it's going to look like and what the page slug is going to be and when it's going to get published and stuff like that. And then you publish the page. It's really pretty simple. So I'm not going to go through all those steps right now, but I'm going to show you kind of what the end product looks like in Ontraport. And this is just, of course, one version of a template. Here's the page URL settings for that. So let's go into actually the Ontraport account now. Let me get rid of that and come here. So this is an account. Now this is kind of like my demo account, and it's got a whole bunch of different, you can see I've just gone crazy with this thing. You've got, I've scooted my pages and blog posts and blog comments over here, so that's what we're going to just show you today. But I've got lessons and lesson comments and courses and private messages and replies and what have I got here? I got all sorts of things. Forum posts and forum comments and images and services and countries and states. I got all kinds of stuff I've been messing around with. I've had this account for a while. But at the beginning, let's just talk about blog posts. Remember when we looked at WordPress, the first thing you see if you click on the blog post thing is a list of records, right? It looks like this, and this is the post date and the post title and the author name. What are those? Those are just individual fields that you create just like any other field in Ontraport. And when you click on this thing, what do you get? You get a record that looks just like any other record. And here it is. I'm gonna have to put my glasses on now because I'm old. Post title, post date. Here's the URL. I didn't make a fancy, of course you can host this on your own URL, but I didn't do that for this thing. You can see here that this post is published, the deadline, but status, a bunch of different stuff about this. You got the author name, the author bio, an image. Of course, that could be related record stuff, right? You could have if you have 5 regular authors, you might have an object called authors and have that information in those records, and then make that a parent of an individual post. And here's the post content, right? Here's the headline and the subheadline and the description and the main post image and the post content. We have a new field type that you may not be familiar with called rich text that allows you to write your whole blog post here. And of course, that's not a great place to write, so you can make it full screen if you want to. And then down here, we have our SEO settings, our page title, SEO, our SEO images, right? And then here is a related set of children, the comments on this blog post. So we'll look at that in just a minute. So that is kind of like what a record looks like. And of course, all these records look similar. You could, even if you wanted to, create look at this, a way of managing your blog posts as they go through the process of getting written, right? These are all published, but maybe you have an idea backlog and I want to create a new blog post here and say, hey, I want to write about dynamic CMS, something like that. I'll save that sucker. Well, let's see, I want to put the status as an idea backlog and save that. Oh, I need to have a slug here, copy, a couple of required fields. That's just the way I set it up. And now, boom, you've got idea backlog here. And then as we move it through the process, you can kind of, manage a real process here. That's kind of cool. But here's all our published posts. You can kind of see what that looks like. Now, if we go over to the dynamic templates, what you'll see here is that we have created a dynamic template. This one's called Mesa Lane blog post new. And here is the template. Here's what it looks like. I can preview this sucker, and you'll see what that looks like in this particular instance. Now check this out. So it's a pretty nice little blog post. Here's some comments we got here. Hey, Isha, I love this post. You can add your own comment. And here's that dynamic block that I talked about with 3 other blog posts here, and then my little footer, right? And we can change that, of course, to more blog posts and change the layout and change kind of everything about that sucker. One thing that's interesting here is that we've got a new button here that allows you to preview different records. So for example, if I wanted to, right now you can see that I'm looking at this post called how to retarget on Facebook in a post iOS 14.5 world, but I can look at a different one like stop losing your hard-earned leads, and boom, all of a sudden that data is shifted in here. Stop losing your hard-earned leads. And if I preview that, it's going to rebuild this, and now I'm going to see a different record here in this template. You can see I've got different comments. Me, this is my first comment. Okay, very cool. How did I do this? Well, it's pretty simple actually. You build the page just like you normally would, but then once you I'm going to just show you. I'm going to drop this headline in here, right? And here, I'll just delete this one so that it's clear that I'm starting here. This is what it looks like. And we'll just move it over to the left. And then we got this new button right here. And that is what a database looks like, you know, if it were the Platonic database. And what you do is you click on this and you say, I want to link this particular element to the post title. Is that what we would say? Post title? Yeah, no, the headline. Probably the headline, right? Save. Boom. Stop earning your hard-earned leads. And now that's linked, right? And so every time we change the record that we're talking about, it will point to a different record and fill out this database using that record. And of course, we did the same thing here. This is the post content. And down here, we've got, well, we'll talk about that in a second. Here's the author image, again, linked. Here is the author, author bio, again, linked. All this stuff is just kind of like linked up. And that's what makes it a template, right? Very simple. Okay, are you picking up what I'm putting down here? This is pretty cool so far, right? We've just created a dynamic template. I'm not going to get into the publishing settings today, but well, I'll show you just real quick kind of how this works. You go in here to settings and create a page type, and in this case, it's called blog posts new. And here's some settings, and you can see here that this is the settings that I used here. It's going to say blog, and it's going to put the unique ID here. You might change this and have it be like, you wouldn't probably want to put the unique ID here. You'd probably put the post title here, something like that. And so then it would use that in the URL. And of course, you wouldn't use our domain because that's silly. You would use your own domain, and you'd put that, mydomain.com right there. And then there's just some other settings here about when to create these records and this and that. We're not going to get into the details. There's a bunch. This is a very, very powerful system. So I'm not going to save that right now. Okay, so that is a couple of the big features that we're talking about here. We're talking about blog posts, record. We're talking about dynamic templates, and we've published the thing. Now, let us go back to our slides and talk about the next thing, which is how do we add blog comments, right? Well, building blog comments is really pretty simple too. Here, I'll slideshow this. All we're going to do is we're going to create another custom object because we know that it's a different thing, right? A comment is a different thing than a blog post, but it's also related to the blog post, right? Kind of like what we talked about in Airbnb, a blog comment is going to be the child of both the blog post and also of the commenter, right? Because you'd want to have be able to go to the commenter and see all of their individual posts, right? Yes, that would be really cool. And you'd want to be able to go to a blog, of course, and see all the posts about that blog. So there's going to be two parents to these individual comments. And so we'll have an object that is called blog comments, and it'll have two parents, the post and the commenter. Then what we'll do is we'll add a form on the page to collect comments. What do you have to say? What's your name? What's your email, right? And then we will add a dynamic block to display the comments once they are created. And I'm actually going to get a little fancier than that, and I'll show you what we did here. So back to the app. Let's just go look at this, what it actually looks like again. Here's the bottom of the content, and then it says there's a headline that says join the conversation. Then there's this thing that's got my name, and we can just do it again here. This is my second. Oh no, it won't work right now because this is a preview. But actually, what I can do is I can go to the blog post, and I can go to stop losing your hard-earned leads. I can go to the actual page and then come down here and say, this is my second comment. And hopefully this is still set up right. I don't really know. Let's see. Landon 2, Ray 2, and then Landon at Ontraport.com. Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go Landon +2 at Ontraport.com and then share my comment. And it's going to process this thing. And if we come back down here, it will, okay, so this is the fancy thing. It will not show up. Why? Because look how cool this system is. I created a system here with blog comments where I wanted to not allow spammy people to post on my blog. And so here it is. Landon to Ray 2 is a new comment that's related to stop losing your hard-earned leads, but it's in new. So I haven't approved it yet. But as soon as I approve this sucker, then boom, I go back to this page and hit refresh, And now there it is. This is my second comment. So that is pretty cool. Maybe that starts to get your mind around how this is different than your typical CMS system or WordPress, right? We're just building this stuff up from scratch. It's a tool set. You can begin to imagine, how would you build Airbnb? How would you build Noom? How would you build, Expedia? How would you manage those businesses if you did build them? You can kind of begin to see what's possible here for your business, right? How would you build a learning management system? Some good questions. Do you need to build a learning management system all on your own? No, we're going to do that for you. Don't worry. We'll talk about that later. So back to the system. How does it work on the actual page? So now we've seen that I created a blog comments page. It's very simple. There's just a few fields. Here's the comment. Well, this isn't the comment. Where's the comment that we were talking about? It's right here. This is my second comment. The commenter is Landon 2, Ray 2. The fact that this is blue, that lets you know that this is actually a relationship. This is the parent record of which is the commenter. We talked about it, how a comment will have two parents. One of them is the commenter, that's a contact, and the other one is the blog post. And so that's also looks like this. And if you click on this, you can go to the blog post, right? You go back and you go back to the comment. If you click on this, you can go to the Landon Ray record. And there it is. Back. Okay. And then the status. And that's basically all we have here, right? I think that, basically all there is. Some system fields that you don't need to worry about. So that's what that is. Now let's go back to the dynamic template and look at how we added that to the page. So we're going to scroll down. And what you'll see here is this is just join the conversation is just a block with a headline in it. And then down here we have a second block, and it's got one instance of a comment in here, right? And what you can see is there's some merge fields here. And you can see then here is a linked element with the comment itself. And then here's some other merge fields. So this is the block commenter first name and the block commenter last name. The reason I used merge fields instead of linking the element is because I'm linking two elements and I wanted them to be in one. I could have done two elements, but this will end up looking nicer. How do you do that? Well, you just literally come in here and you'll see there's a bunch of new features. We are not going through all the new features. There's so much to what we are building here. This thing is deep. And we're just not going to get into it all today. But what you can see is that the merge field inserter now is much more sophisticated than you're used to once you've got dynamic content turned on in your account. It used to be that merge fields were always about the visiting contact, right? You go to a page and it would say, "Hi, John," and it would be pulling that information from the visiting contacts record, right? Well, we still have that, the visiting contacts. Here's "Hi, John," right? This is what you're used to. But now we have two other things. We can pull from two different records. One is the dynamic page record, which in this case is Stop Losing Your Hard-Earned Leads blog posts. So we can pull information in from there. Or we can pull information from the dynamic block, which is the comments. This is going to get repeated down the page with each individual comment record, and we can pull in information from the comment itself. And that's what we've done here. We've said, who's the commenter? We've gone in the commenter, we've drilled into that. Commenter's first name, boom, and that's what it looks like. Block commenter first name. See how it says that right there? Boom. So I'm just going to delete it because I don't need it there twice, but that's what that is. And then we've done block commenter's last name. And then down here, we've done block date added. And this stuff here is just it's formatting. You know, when you add a date in Ontraport, I'll show you. You add a date in Ontraport, date added, and then it has this formatting. You can kind of format it any way you want, and the system adds that stuff to tell us how to format it. So that's what that is. So, for example, let's just see what this looks like if I wanted to make this the primary color of the page, or the complementary color of the page. I could republish that. So now I've made that red. Oh, sorry, I should explain how this works. So then what I've done here is I've gone into the block settings, and I've converted this block into a dynamic block. And when I did that, I got some new settings over here, and it tells me how many records I should show on a page and what should happen if there's more. In this case, I put none, but you can see I can add a previous and next button so you can page through them. I can sort by various stuff, and then I can add conditions. I did add a condition. The status is equal to approved. right? Because we don't want to have it be spam, right? Or new. So it only shows up if the status is approved, and we saw that working. So that's pretty cool. And then we publish this sucker, and then we come in here and you'll see all of a sudden that that's red now because we just changed it in our template. Okay, very powerful. Let's stop again and answer any questions. Is there questions?
We got, does this produce an app that can be downloaded from the App Store or Play Store?
Okay, good question. Not yet. No, it does not produce an app. This is a web application. This is all created on the web. Of course, you can create mobile versions of all this stuff, and so they're easily accessible from any browser on the web. In the future, we plan to create the ability for you to make progressive web apps, which are sometimes allowed on the web store, depending on the store you're talking about, and stuff like that, which will allow you to kind of at the very least, it'll allow you to have an icon on the homepage and kind of get rid of the browser bar and stuff like that. So it'll look and feel like a normal app. And in some cases, it'll allow you to actually put it on the web store and get it downloaded there. It's not really that important to get on the web store. It turns out that anymore, traffic doesn't come from the web store. You got to do marketing to get your app out there. So yeah, progressive web apps in the future, but right now they are web applications that, of course, can be managed from your phone as well. Anything else right now?
That's it for now.
Okay, that's important stuff. All right, so let's just we're doing good here. This is awesome. We're right in an hour, and I am wrapping it up. So what else can you build? Obviously, is a great question. You're going to be able to build a ton of stuff, and we're going to give you some templates over the next few weeks for things like blog. We're not going to make you create a blog all on your own. We're going to give you some templates. They're not going to be ready right at launch, but within a couple of weeks after launch, you're going to be able to just go into Ontraport. And in fact, you can see we're getting ready for this. You can see did it go up? Maybe it didn't come out. Let me see. Administration. Ooh, it did. Look at this. There's a new link here in the administration section. No, maybe this isn't the newest one. No, this isn't the newest one. But anyway, it'll be like here. It'll say apps, and it will be you'll be able to just come here and turn on a blog, just like you turn on deals and companies. Another thing you'll be able to do is turn on courses and lessons, right? You can imagine that courses and lessons and comments are all the same thing, right? Let's go back to the screen here. Courses and lessons, or to the video. Yeah, we can let the slides go. Courses and lessons and comments. Obviously, all the same kind of stuff, right? That's just dynamic pages that you can build. We won't make you build it. We'll give you a template for that eventually, but the tools are all right there to be able to edit it and make it work any way you want. So you're not stuck in a box of doing it the way the app creator designed it. You can edit it if you want it to be different, right? A forum, an online forum might be another thing you could build. There's actually a ton of stuff that you can build with this. In fact, what we're going to do on Thursday is we're going to show you a couple of real life examples. We have some people in our community that have had access to this thing for several months already, and some of the stuff they have built is mind-blowing. So I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet, but suffice to say that the blog example that I just gave you was about as basic as it gets. These guys have taken it and run with it, and we're going to do a kind of a 20-minute presentation for each one of these apps on Thursday. And I think that if you're interested in what's possible here, those conversations are really going to blow your mind wide open with respect to what is possible with this set of tools. Of course, as with everything in software and at Ontraport, we are, this is just a V1. Since we put this thing in beta, we've launched, I don't even know how many additional features, and we're launching more features all the time. We're definitely not stopping on this thing, and there's going to be a ton more stuff to come in the next year and beyond. Many of these projects are already, halfway completed and in progress in various stages of completion. So the capabilities will continue to grow as this goes on and on. But I'll tell you what, the version 1 that we're going to be releasing very soon here is incredibly powerful, the most powerful dynamic content management system that is out there. Okay, so we haven't even gotten in, for example, to dynamic lists, which takes this thing all to the next level. The next question, of course, is when can I have it? What does it cost? The answers to those are also coming on Thursday. We are working our butts off to try and release this thing on Thursday. It may come as soon as Thursday. Again, if you've been around here for a while, you know that stuff happens, and we don't try to release stuff that's broken. So if it's not going to happen on Thursday, it'll happen very shortly thereafter. But we're shooting for Thursday, and hopefully we can get it out to you in just a couple of days. The cost is something that we'll talk about on the call on Thursday, and you'll see all about how that's going to work. It's going to be affordable. That is what it's going to be. It's going to be a steal for what you're getting for sure. And then finally, the details of the next call. We're going to talk again on Thursday, this Thursday, 2 days from now. Again, same bat time, same bat channel, 2:30 p.m. Ontraport.com/live stream, or at a Facebook or YouTube live stream near you. Both of which, you'll find on Facebook or YouTube, and it's all there at ontraport.com/live stream. Thanks so much for joining us today. Let's move the conversation between now and then into the community. Obviously, if you're seeing this, you're probably a part of our Facebook community. I presume that Facebook will probably wrap this up and drop it into the community here once they've processed it in a little bit, and so we can talk about that, talk about details in the community between now and then. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you in a couple of days.